The 28th edition of the African Cup of Nations is on our doorsteps, and host nations Gabon and Equatorial Guinea are abuzz with excitement. Welcome to M10 Football Webcast. I'm your host, Brian Lee. Here in the studio today to hear his views of football commentator Mr. Dwayne DeLocca. And Dwayne, certainly this tournament has a different view to that of past tournaments, with the likes of heavyweights, the likes of Nigeria, Algeria, Egypt, Cameroon, all these teams not in the tournament. How does this shape up then?
Well, Brian, a lot of people are saying that this tournament is going to be detracted from somewhat by the fact that the likes of Egypt and former winners in Nigeria, Cameroon are not at this tournament. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. I think you've got to start looking at the positives here. You've got Equatorial Guinea playing for the first time. You've got Niger playing for the first time. You've got Botswana playing for the first time. Yes, they're all very much outside bets to go on and do something at this tournament, cause upsets or surprises, but they've got the ability to do so. I think what you've got to look at, though, is the number of changes that are being made. And certainly you look at a team like Sudan, you look at a team like Libya, they came up against the toughest opposition, certainly politically in their countries leading up to this tournament, but they've come through it with aplomb, and they've shown true football character to come through and qualify for a tournament like this. Sudan, of course, split into two countries, very politically active leading up to this, but the footballers have not overly been affected by it. Libya, this is a team that went through a revolution. Now they find their footballing team that wasn't even allowed to play their qualifiers at home throughout the qualification campaign, playing in the tournament. They've showed they can play away from home, and that is most important. You look at a team like Sudan, they won away from home. You look at a team like Cote d'Ivoire, yes, they're real quality, they won away from home. Teams like Niger, they won all their home matches, but every match they played away from home, Sierra Leone, South Africa, Egypt, they lost. And that is really going to be key in terms of this tournament, how you play away from home. But for the 14 other teams, of course, that is, not for Gabon and Equatorial Guinea. It's about how they will perform in front of their home crowds, in front of their host nation, so to speak. That is going to be one of the concerns, crowd attendances and how they're going to be entertained by this group. Because I honestly don't believe that Equatorial Guinea and Gabon are going to advance past the first round of this tournament. And sometimes we've seen what a drastic effect that has on crowd attendances and on interest in the tournaments in the countries in which the events are being played. If the host nations don't do well, attendances don't do greatly, the atmosphere suffers, and of course the tournament suffers as a result. In terms of football quality on the pitch, I think it's going to be great, and I think we're going to see the emergence of some great young new players coming through as well. We always see the emergence of great young new players. You just cast your mind back to 2 years ago, a young Egyptian player by the name of Mohamed Nagy. Nobody had even heard of him. Many people in Egypt hadn't even heard of him. He was picked out of nowhere from Hassan Shiata, came off the bench in most of Egypt's games and scored 5 goals, ended up as the tournament's leading goal scorer with only a handful of minutes under his belt. That is the type of remarkable player power that we see often on stage and on display for the African Cup of Nations. I think we're going to see it again. The question is, who's it going to come from?
Certainly a lot of history and a lot of background coming into this tournament. 3 teams, as you mentioned, playing in their first ever African Cup of Nations, as well as 2 teams in Tunisia and Libya coming into this tournament off the back of revolutions. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty, Dwayne. Let's get down to the football. We know the likes of Ghana and Ivory Coast are the favourites, but who are the outsiders that are possibly going to cause some upsets, and who are the players to watch from the respective teams?
Well, certainly rightly Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire favourites for this tournament, but I think in terms of outside bets, I think Senegal is a great option to put down on paper for a team that could go on and win this tournament. They've certainly got the ability with a number of players that they've got and a strike force that is very, very impressively led by the likes of Mamadou Niang and certainly Cisse and Sao. They've got the ability to score goals, and that's what's crucial in winning matches. It's not about how well you defend, although that's crucial at a stage. If you don't score goals, you're not going to be able to pick up the points, and this is where a team like Senegal has got the ability to score, and that's where they're similar to a team like Cote d'Ivoire, whose mentality is, yes, we can concede a few goals from time to time because we're going to score more than the opposition at any other time. That's generally how Cote d'Ivoire play. That's you go back to some of the classic teams in world football, they've played like that, and certainly this side has the ability to do that as well from Senegal. I think Guinea and Mali, while they're in the same group with Ghana, one of them almost certainly not going to make it past the group stages of this tournament. I think what you're going to see is a huge battle between these two teams. Mali have the ability to always overperform when it comes to an African Cup of Nations, and after the disappointment of 2010 where they failed to make it past the group stages, this Mali side I think has got a real chance to show that they can once again make the top 4 of this tournament. They're a team that has got one of the best players in the world, who plays for the best club in the world in Seydou Keita, and he is the real core for this Mali side. And I mean, you look at his performances in African Cup of Nations, while many European-based players who are heroes for their respective club sides come back and play for their African countries and fail to perform in the top level, Seydou Keita is quite different. He's always been at his very best when he's played for Mali, and he has been one of the true crusaders for this Mali side in leading the team forward. Unfortunately, since the retirement of Freddie Kanute, the strike force has not been overly strong. Cheick Diabate, not quite the player you would expect to lead a strike force, but when you look at Mali's midfield, they're strong enough to show that they've got something to do. Guinea, the way they qualified, outstanding. They kept Nigeria at bay throughout the qualifying campaign, and I think that puts them with a really good chance of doing something. I think the other team you've got to look out for is Morocco. The likes of Marwan Chamakh, Yusuf Hadji are certainly very strong, very experienced players. Chamakh obviously a lot younger and maybe still trying to get over his disappointment at Arsenal, but certainly the likes of Hadji's got the ability to go on and play with the best. Adel Tarabt as well, another world-class player and a man that's had his troubles with the national team before, but has the ability to really shine on the African stage. Morocco find themselves in a group that they should end up topping, and if they top the group, it should be an easier passage through to the next stage of this competition. I'm picking Morocco to even go top 4, maybe even further.
Irrespective of how the ball plays, I'm certainly going to have a fantastic 2012 African Cup of Nations. In terms of how it works, we've got 4 groups with 4 teams. The top 2 qualifying for the knockout stages, quarterfinals, semi-finals, and then finals. Thanks for joining us here on MTN Football Webcast, and stay tuned for more reviews and previews.